7, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today, 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boot, boot.
Lama Seus, Lucifer matutimus indenias, ille in quam Lucifer qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxi.
What's up, everybody? Truth Seeker here. And today we're going to be going over how they basically brainwash and control the world via television for people to only see certain things and to not understand what they're actually seeing, and to how to get repetition to actually get people to normalize things. Let's go ahead and dig into this.
President, earlier this year you told us you had ordered your administration to cease and desist on payments to journalists to promote your agenda. You cited the need for ethical concerns and the need for a bright line between the press and the government. Your administration continues to make the use of video news releases, which are prepackaged news stories sent to television stations, fully aware that some or many of these stations will air them without any disclaimer that they are produced by the government. Comptroller General of the United States this week said that raises ethical questions. Does it raise ethical questions about the use of government money to produce stories about the government that wind up being aired with no disclosure that they were produced by the government?
There is a Justice Department opinion that says these pieces are within the law so long as they're based upon facts, not advocacy. And I expect our agencies to adhere to that ruling, to that Justice Department opinion. This has been a long-standing practice of the federal government to use these types of videos. Agricultural Department, as I understand, has been using these videos for a long period of time. The Defense Department, other departments have been doing so. It's important that they be based upon the guidelines set out by the Justice Department. Now, I think it'd be helpful if local stations then disclose to their viewers if that's, that this was based upon a factual report and they chose to use it. But evidently in some cases that's not the case. So anyway.
To guarantee that's happening by including that language in the prepackaged report.
Yeah, I don't, look, oh, you mean a disclosure on George W. Bush and I?
Well, some way to make sure it couldn't air without the disclosure that you believe is so vital.
Ken, I mean, there's a procedure that we're going to follow, and the local stations ought to, if there's a deep concern about that, ought to tell their viewers what they're watching. Tell their viewers what they're watching.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download. Brought to you by
Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Literally everything you see on any mainstream media source, be it news, Netflix, billboards, magazines, YouTube videos, advertisements, or cable TV shows, are controlled and deliberately released to provoke certain reactions from you and everyone else. Virtually everything your mind is consuming. Through this, they are able to control the global conversation. Whatever the media cartel is talking about, we assume everyone else is talking about it. Through the use of repetition, the opinions they present to us we think are everyone else's opinions, or at least the majority.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 The majority of these media platforms are there for nothing more than to parrot whatever message is demanded by the biggest contributor.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep. The company is keeping its employees safe. Keeping its employees safe. The company is keeping its employees safe. Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
And that is how it works.
The Oscar winners give a press conference and how to buy a sailboat.
I guess my feeling at this point in time is maybe we need to be completely a little bit more scary for the public.
Especially with the Delta variant, which is the hardiest and most contagious variant we've seen to date. We need all the protection that we can get. That's why the vaccines are so effective.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
We've got to get them vaccinated, and hopefully they will do it willingly.
I think we really need to make it clear that there are privileges associated with being an American.
We have to be more blunt, we have to be more forceful.
If you do not want to get vaccinated, you can work from home. You can homeschool your children. You can shop online. So where is this coming from? People saying, I'm now being forced to be vaccinated.
If you want to travel, you better go get that vaccine.
You should be wearing masks even when you are vaccinated if you are indoors.
If you wish to have these privileges, you need to get vaccinated.
We have to say something coming out, you know, you don't get vaccinated, you know you're going to die. I mean, let's just be really blunt to these people.
Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated.
Thought you couldn't wear press-on nails because of all the active things you do? Pre-colored in 7 luscious hues. Just...
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. These signals being sent through...
Mainstream media has a big influence on a lot of people's thoughts, a lot of people's beliefs, and a lot of people's motives to the actions that they actually take. For a long time, the mainstream media has actually been guided by the government and is actually the free advertising to their propaganda platform for centuries.
So roll cameras.
1 sec, 1.
Here we go, and action!
On television. So when you're in a country where the free press has been banned, as it has been in Ukraine, you may not realize that the rest of the world is not required to believe you. You can't throw them all in jail.
Like, I don't know if people, like, think I'm speaking metaphorically when I say everything is fake. I'm serious. Literally, everything you're seeing through cable television and most airwave television shows is fake. Literally, it's all bullshit. This shit right here, I mean, I don't know how long this is going to continue on. All it takes is for people to just do some research to actually see what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. If you actually know what Zelensky and his band of soldiers are in the Ukraine, if you actually understand what their militia is, they are neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis are in the Ukraine. This is the ones that Putin is purposely trying to kill. They're purposely trying to get rid of. They're trying to get rid of these people because they're the ones that are doing the human trafficking and all the crazy shit. And this goes back far beyond, you know, to the same bullshit with Bolsheviks and everything else, and just rolled into a neat little package. And the thing I don't get about it, though, is how clueless people are. I see all these yard signs that says, "I stand with Ukraine." Like, all it takes, if you just look up the pictures of what Ukraine soldiers are doing to the Russian soldiers. Okay? I mean, like, how much more blind can people be?
CBS Health Watch, sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
History will always repeat itself, but the evidence is right there in front of everybody's faces, and they just don't see it. Like, for example, this was a scene from the Gulf War in the early 90s, and the CNN reporter, Charles Jacobs, is pretending to be out there in Saudi Arabia in the battlefield, and in all reality, this is all being scripted, and it's actually on a set, and everything is just being recorded.
Now again, as we said, we're not sure what caused this. It could possibly, and we emphasize possibly, have been a ground impact of a Scud. It could have been a ground impact of a Patriot, or it could have been the result of debris falling between the two of them. We just don't know right now, but we do know that at least 2 Scud missiles incoming were fired at Riyadh, and according to the Saudi military, they were both shot down. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia. Was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. However, there was an intercept elsewhere near the capital city, Riyadh. We've got some videotape of that you can take a look at right now. Hi, Atlanta. We're about to have a short course in missile identification. This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you.
Graffiti on it? Yeah, show me graffiti.
Larry King show or bust. Look at this.
Look
at this. Look at this shit. Look at.
Can you believe that? Let me say hi.
The top 10 things about Saudi Arabia. Maybe we could shorten the list to 5.
Oh God, Geopolitics by Dan Quayle.
Je suis un journaliste américain. Wolf. Wolf. Oh, I love this country so much.
You guys just don't have a clue.
Well, Cheryl, it was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. Now, let me just size my mask and fit it for a second, just like I always do. Stand by, please. All clear. They're... Oh, shh. What are they saying? Are they saying all clear?
Yes, ma'am. I can't hear.
Were they saying all clear down there just now?
Okay.
All clear. All clear. Está bien was a false alarm. Got that, Atlanta? Standing down now. I'm gonna go get my hamburger and my coffee.
Good. We just got the all clear.
All clear. Every time I order something, this happens. All clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I'm starting to get real bothered by all this. Boy, did I almost look stupid. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia. No, wait a minute. Whoa, hold it, homeboy. I'm the talent here, you dig? Couple of explosions, what may have been an outgoing Patriot ground-to-air missile, some reported airbursts that may have been an intercept of an incoming Scud missile. We're really not sure. All we know is that the air raid sirens have gone off, and we've heard the outgoing roar of at least one Patriot missile. We've heard some sort of airburst. We can't tell where it was from where we are right now. We're waiting to see what's happening. Do we see much of anything out there? Can we see much of anything? Okay, well, apparently there was some word of outgoing. Again, we cannot be specific about the direction. All right, we are now led to understand that there are also firings in another city in Saudi Arabia. CNN's Carl Rochelle is here with me, just came up. Carl, I know we can't be very specific given these restrictions, but within those parameters, what did you see?
Well, what I saw, I didn't see anything hit. I looked almost straight above us. There is a vapor trail coming from my right to my left, and there's a cloud of something. It looks like it might have been an explosion, a cloud. I'd say
And that is how it all works.
The even more crazier part is when they start interfering with actual reality to begin with. Like, for example, watch how CNN coaches this focus group into saying exactly what the scripts want them to say.
that America already is great, but we are great because we are good.
America's great. America's great. America's great. All right, so I want to ask you, what was it about Hillary Clinton's argument that resonated with you following Donald Trump's defense of the video?
She stated that America is already great, and I tend to agree with that. Though we are slow in progressing in a number of areas, we are progressing, and we need to continue the momentum.
It's almost as if the networks aren't even trying anymore. They can't cover up their stupidity, and it makes you wonder why, doesn't it? But James O'Keefe from Project Veritas really exposes how stupid they are. Look at this crap that they actually openly admit, like they're bragging about it.
Then why is CNN constantly like Russia this, Russia that?
Because it's ratings.
Because it's ratings?
Our ratings are incredible right now.
But honestly, you think the whole Russia shit is just like bullshit?
Could be bullshit. I mean, it's mostly bullshit right now. Like, we don't have any big giant proof. I just feel like they don't really have it, but they want to keep digging.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the president is probably right to say, like, look, you are witch hunting me. Like, you have no smoking gun, you have no real proof.
And the CEO of CNN said in our internal meeting, he said, good job everybody covering the climate accords, but we're done with it, let's get back to Russia.
And that right there was, head people of CNN just openly admitting everything just right there. But it doesn't stop right there, folks. Even your local news networks, the ones that are in your town that broadcast on your local air channels, they're also even scripted.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, right? Especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on their birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially when it comes to their birthday.
Absolutely.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's smile is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
You know, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. You like that?
In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some of the spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take the spring out of the step of the Easter Bunny this year.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby.
Mike Myers says, yeah, baby. Did I say that right?
Yeah, say it right.
Yeah, baby.
So in conclusion, mainstream media has always been a lie. They've been deceiving people for years. For a very, very, very long time, they've been deceiving people. It's more or less up to you to critically think on what's real and what's fake, because you can't believe every single thing that comes out of the boob tube. Especially after seeing all this stuff together, there's no way you could still sit there and say, I trust what exactly they're saying on that tube. There's very few networks out there that you can actually even listen to, and to me it's kind of easy to actually figure out who's telling the truth and who isn't. And usually, I mean, it's common sense that can actually judge that. A lot of people don't have common sense this day and age, and it may be something that they should actually start teaching in schools, because the way these networks are designed is for people to not ever critically think on their own anymore. They want to do all the thinking for you. They want to help you make all your decisions. They want to help you make all your votes. Just remember, the next time you do watch television, and if you watch news on it, I want you to actually critically think about it this time. Don't take everything they said to you as the actual truth. Do your own research, do your own fact checking. You have the power to control your own thinking. You have the power to control your own beliefs. Don't let the television do it for you anymore.
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that. It was a famous African-American baseball player in America.
Pomp, fanfare, and ceremony. Pope Francis, the head of the Jesuit order, announced through his cantor the imminent emergence, the near advent of the coming to light of the Antichrist.
Lama Seus, Lucifer matutimus indeniat, ille in quam Lucifer qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxit, et te convivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
During this pronouncement, the cantor called Lucifer God, claiming Lucifer to be the father of Jesus Christ. The cantor acknowledged Lucifer as the Antichrist himself and worshipped him. To this, a great crowd and the whole world sang. This was the 3D ceremony that the Pope wanted to be seen worldwide. The announcement to the world, the son of perdition, this way comes.
7, 6, 11, 5, 9 and 20 miles today, 4, 11, 17, 32 the day before. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. Men, Men go mad with watching them. There's no discharge in the war.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Truth Seeker here. Well, instead of me making the normal compilation that everybody's gonna steal and use in their documentaries and never once say Josh Who, for real, like I haven't heard Josh Who mentioned from anyone ever. Besides some, I mean, there's smaller channels. There is some smaller channels I do give that actually has mentioned me, before. But I'm talking about the large channels that actually gets millions of hits a day and shit like that, Never mentioned me. But, so, fuck it. I'm gonna just do this live. We're doing this live, damn it.
A new government report is raising eyebrows across the country.
A new government report is raising eyebrows across the country, especially among anyone interested in extraterrestrials.
Physicist
and Harvard professor Avi Loeb.
Physicist and Harvard professor Avi Loeb says there's a possibility humans aren't the only civilization in the universe.
Whether we live in such a reality or not is not a philosophical question. We just have to look out.
Loeb teamed up with the Pentagon office that investigates.
Unidentified aerial phenomenon, and they came up with this draft report.
Specifically, Loeb thinks the first interstellar object spotted.
Loeb thinks the first interstellar object spotted passing through our solar system in 2017 could be an extraterrestrial mothership.
What if all isn't as it seems? What if the reality you found was false? A carefully constructed narrative by unseen special interests designed to manipulate your opinion.
I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. What they do, these transatlantic organizations, is they invite you for seeing the United States. They pay all your expenses and everything. So you are bribed. You get more and more corrupt because they make you good contacts. You won't know that those good contacts are, let's say, non-official or officially people working for Central Intelligence Agency or other American agencies. So you make friends. You think they are friends, and you cooperate with them. They ask you, well, could you do me this favor? Could you do me that favor? So your brain more and more is brainwashed through these guys. And your question was, is this only the case with German journalists? No, I think it is especially the case with British journalists, because they have a much closer relationship.
It then revealed that during the Iraq War, the Pentagon paid more than $500 million to a British firm to spread fake al-Qaeda videos. And it's part of what's believed to be one of the most costly PR contracts in history. Washington's intentions were aimed at portraying al-Qaeda in a negative light. However, critics claim the videos may have instead promoted the terrorist agenda. The staff of PR company Bell Pottinger were stationed inside the highly secured U.S. military and intelligence HQ in Camp Victory in Baghdad.
Well, to be honest, when I went out there, I had no idea. I was told initially I'd be working on news. It transpired it wasn't new. It was news, but not news as I expected. I expected it to be doing stuff for news agencies such as yourselves and Reuters, etc., and just providing footage for them. But no, when I got out there, I was working in buildings 1 and 1A, which are right opposite the palace where the general was. So I was introduced to the American intelligence people I was working with, and I was introduced to the Bell Pottinger staff I was working with. But I still, at that point, had no idea what I was doing, but I knew as soon as I walked through the door, I certainly wasn't doing news. And then later, as I went through and spoke to other people there and worked out what I was actually doing, it transpired that it was essentially it is a form of propaganda.
There you have it, folks. I could finally rub this in all the people's faces that called me a conspiracy theorist. Finally could tell them, you guys remember this one, don't you? Look, this is behind the scenes of the very first beheading. pretty crazy, isn't it? There's camera guys, there's lights, sound studio, stage equipment. We live in a bullshit world. It's all fake. Every single bit of it is fake.
A couple of years ago, CBS News asked me to look into a story about a study coming out from the nonprofit National Sleep Foundation. Supposedly, this press release coming out said, the study concluded we're a nation with an epidemic of sleeplessness and we don't even know it, and we should all go ask our doctors about it. A couple of things struck me about that. First, I recognized the phrase, ask your doctor, as a catchphrase promoted by the pharmaceutical industry. They know that if they can get your foot through the door of the doctor's office to mention a malady, you're very likely to be prescribed the latest drug that's marketed. Second, I wondered how serious an epidemic of sleeplessness could really be if we don't even know that we have it. Right? It didn't take long for me to do a little research and discover that the National Sleep Foundation nonprofit and the study, which was actually a survey, not a study, were sponsored in part by a new drug that was about to be launched onto the market called Lunesta, a sleeping pill. I reported the study as CBS News asked, but of course I disclosed the sponsorship behind the nonprofit and the survey so that viewers could weigh the information accordingly. All the other news media reported the same survey directly off the press release as written without digging past the superficial. It later became an example written up in the Columbia Journalism Review, which quite accurately reported that only we at CBS News had bothered to do a little bit of research and disclose the conflict of interest behind this widely reported survey. Special interests have unlimited time and money to figure out new ways to spin us while cloaking their role. Surreptitious astroturf methods are now more important to these interests than traditional lobbying of Congress. There's an entire industry built around it in Washington. What is astroturf? It's a perversion of grassroots, as in fake grassroots. AstroTurf is when political, corporate, or other special interests disguise themselves and publish blogs, start Facebook and Twitter accounts, publish ads, letters to the editor, or simply post comments online to try to fool you into thinking an independent or grassroots movement is speaking. The whole point of AstroTurf is to try to give the impression there's widespread support for or against an agenda when there's not. AstroTurf seeks to manipulate you into changing your opinion by making you feel as if you're an outlier when you're not. One example is the Washington Redskins name. Without taking a position on the controversy, if you simply were looking at news media coverage over the course of the past year or looking at social media, you'd probably have to conclude that most Americans find that name offensive and think it ought to be changed. But what if I told you 71% of Americans say the name should not be changed? That's more than 2/3. AstroTurfers seek to controversialize those who disagree with them. They attack news organizations that publish stories they don't like, whistleblowers who tell the truth, politicians who dare to ask the tough questions, and journalists who have the audacity to report on all of it.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, right? Especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on their birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially when it comes to their birthdays.
Absolutely.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's smile is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
You know, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. You like that?
Sometimes the intelligence agencies, they come to your office and want you to write an article. The German Foreign Intelligence, Bundesnachrichtendienst, they wanted me to write an article about Libya and about Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. They gave me all these secret informations, and they just wanted me to write, to sign the article with my name. I did that. It was a story that was printed worldwide 2 days later. But I had no information on that. It was the intelligence agency. So do you really think that this is journalism? Intelligence agencies writing articles?
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it.
How'd you find this place? Joshu? Hey, wait. What? How did you learn how to talk? Joshu?